Morning, gang. It's a chilly day here in Georgia. It is January 5th, 2017. I hope you all had a happy new year. I know I did. Um, I guess I'm going to start off my new set of videos this year by doing some work on my son's 2003 Toyota Camry. It has 219,000 miles on it. And I've done other videos on this. I think I did the starter and something with the throttle body. I also did a wheel bearing at some point. I don't know if I filmed that or not. But anyway, we haven't done a whole lot of maintenance to this car. Haven't had to. Recently, he's had a check engine light come on, and he stopped by Advanced Auto Parts, and they read and said it was something to do with a spark plug. So he bought a set of spark plugs. Late last year, he had changed the oil in it, and I noticed that the oil that came out of it was a little bit low. It should have held, I think this holds just over 4 quarts, and it didn't look like 4 quarts in the pan. And I said, well, you need to keep an eye on your oil. So I get a call last night, and he says, Dad, it smells like something's kind of burning. And he wasn't sure what to look for or what to look at. And he opened the hood and he saw that the valve cover was pretty wet with oil. And if you look, you can actually see there's oil puddled up on the exhaust manifold cover. And so I said, okay, let's take a look at it. Anyway, the plan for today is to get a look at this, what's causing the oil leak. And I believe it's just the valve cover. But I wanted to show you this. I parked it here this morning, and that's how much oil has come out of it already. So obviously there's an issue with the amount of oil it's losing. So today I need to run to the parts store and go get a valve cover gasket. He's already picked up some spark plugs. I'll do them all at the same time. The other thing he told me, he said, hey, it's not making any heat on the inside of the car. And I thought, oh, that's not good. Well, I'm not sure if there's something else wrong or not, but I dumped about a gallon of antifreeze in it today, so I'm hoping the head gasket isn't blown. But I'm not going to worry about that at this moment. For now, I'm going to start with the valve cover and do some looking around and see if I can't figure out if there's something else going on. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to remove these two bolts or nuts right here. These are 10 millimeter, just a simple ratchet socket. Remove those the nuts, set them aside, and then this top cover should come off pretty easily. It's got these little push clips on the back here, these push boots, let's say. They go on these posts all the way in the back. So we get that cover out of the way. We can see that there's a lot more oil showing up in this area here. But what I'm going to do next, because I have to remove the cover, I need to remove these coil packs. So there's 4 of those, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a 10 millimeter and remove the bolt holding the coil pack on top of the spark plug. Just for simplicity, I'll just do the first one here. Set that bolt aside, and then gently pull up on that, and that pulls the coil pack out of the way. So you could either disconnect these clips right here, or you could take this whole assembly, all 4 of these together, and set them off to the side. So let me get the rest of those out of the way, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I've pulled all the coil packs off and set them to the rear, but you'll see here there's a little plastic retainer. So I'm going to remove that bolt so that this plastic will get out of the way. It's also on top of the valve cover. And then I'll remove this bolt as well so this one can get out of the way. And then there will be a series of bolts on the perimeter. There's one there, 2, 3, 4. Should be one there on the side over here. Sorry. Of course, this up front is a nut. And then there's also 2 in the center. So let me get these bundles out of the way. And then the other thing we'll have to do is disconnect this hose and basically just squeeze that clamp and wiggle this off of this post right here. And then this one, we can either release this clip and slide it off, or take it off of the plenum for the intake. So let me start by getting those 2 clips out of the way. sure you set these bolts in such a way that you remember where they go. Should be pretty standard as far as sizing, but that'll get that out of the way. And then this one will also move a little bit more freely and give it enough room to get the valve cover out. So let me get the get these other bolts and nuts off, and again these two in the center, and then we'll drive on from there. Okay, so I removed all the bolts, and then on this hose back here, I don't know if you can see or not, I slid the clip back, and then I took a screwdriver and wedged between the edge of the fitting and the hose itself to wiggle on it. And once I got it loose, it pulled off just fine. On the other end, on the other side I should say, I found it was really tight on this here, on the fitting here, so I separated it from the plenum. That was a bit easier, it slid right off. So, oh, also, I took out this bolt right here that held the wire bundle to the alternator. Just gave a little more play up here to get that out of the way. At this point, the valve cover should be loose. I don't think there's anything else in the way. I'll just have to fight around some of these, some of the hardware in the way. But I'm going to take a screwdriver and pry up on it gently off of this bracket and see if, there it goes. So it's loose front and rear. Tricky part's going to be getting it around all these wires. Well, oh, there we go. Okay, I got the gasket hanging on in the back. So, that's out of the way. And there you can see the underside where the gasket goes. That clip that held that wire bundle on the right side actually broke, prying up on it. So as you can see, but it's hard to make room when everything is pressed in there so tight and it's been there forever. Gives you a good chance to look at stuff like the timing chain, still tight, pretty amazing, 219,000 miles. And then all four of these holes right here, that's where your spark plug goes. But I'm not going to mess with those until I get the valve cover replaced. So obviously I could see a lot of oil on these edges here. It was seeping past, and that happens whenever gaskets get old and dry. They shrink up a little bit, and so hopefully, yeah, there's a lot of oil in that back section. Hopefully this will take care of any future oil leaks. These are great little engines, run forever as long as you take care of them. But looking at this cover, the gasket has a kind of a tall, I don't know what you want to call it, not a hat shape. It looks like a little railroad track, and it presses down in this groove. And yeah, you can hear how dry that is. Look at that, breaking into pieces just by pulling on it. Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the problem. And then the internal gasket, you can hear that just cracking away. This is where it protects your spark plugs. And there again, you can see that little kind of a shoulder, or whatever you want to call it. So obviously I'll have to clean up all this plastic stuff, get it out of the way, and then I'll go back with putting in the new gasket. And I will say these, the round gasket for the spark plug holes, this stuff's so dry I can't get it to move. So what I did on these first few was take a screwdriver and tap right underneath the edge of it, it actually started breaking. I'm being careful not to dig into the aluminum of the housing of the cover itself. So just breaking pieces off, and as I've done that, it'll separate a little bit. And hopefully come up enough that I can get underneath it with a screwdriver and pry it up. Hopefully yours isn't that bad. But wow, these things are dry. There it goes. So you can see there. So anyway, just thought I'd show you that. I still have one more to do, and then I'll clean it up a little more and get the other one in place. Okay, so I've cleaned up the valve cover, and I've also cleaned up the cylinder head. And I want to show you, this is the part number VS50530R, and it's from Felpro. And I picked this up from Advanced Auto Parts. I think it was only less than $20. But you can see there's only one way this gasket will fit. It's got this tab on it that holds the 4 spark plug hole rings together. So that's all you do, is you press that in to those locations. Make sure it's fully seated. Whoops. Make sure you're facing the right way though. Should have noticed that. So then that tells you to fit, at least those holes will fit a different direction. But the gasket will only fit one way. I'm not adding any sealant or anything like that. And it fits in there in a very relaxed way. Like I said, make sure everything's in there nice and snug. Now the other thing I'm going to do, or I've already done, let me look at that and show you. High performance blue. I don't think the color really matters at this point. But also I went around and wiped down the entire mating surface on the cylinder head. So at this point I'm going to snake that cover back in there, you know, work it around these wire bundles, get it in place, and then reinstall all the bolts and nuts. Alright, let's see if I can get this in place. Being extra careful to not knock the gasket out of the way. I'm going to go up front here where the timing belt or timing chain is. Try to go in that area first. There we go. Get that, get that hose out of the way. Get one last look underneath. Make sure the gasket's in place. And there it is. I don't see any gasket sticking out anywhere. That's a good sign. So at this point I'll go back and put all of the bolts and nuts in place where they came out. I have all the bolts and nuts in place, and from what I've read, it takes about 8 foot-pounds. That's a pretty small number, and I don't have anything to read in that small of foot-pounds. So basically I'm going to snug these down and just have to do it by feel. I'm not going to crush them, and I'm going to start with these 2 center ones, and then I'll go with the what would basically be the center on either side, and then work my way outward away from the center. And you can see I'm not putting a lot of torque on them, I'm just using a couple fingers. And I'll just go around one more time to make sure. See, that one came a little bit loose from the perimeter being drawn down. But basically, that's how you change this gasket. And then of course, I'm also going to change the spark plugs, but I'm going to put everything back in place that needs to be in place. Now the cover will have to stay off to do these spark plugs. So I'll probably do those on this video as well, but I'm going to get all these other little clips and stuff in place before I start on those. The valve cover's back in place, and I just noticed something. I want to point this out. It looks like this gasket, or this valve cover, valve cover has basically a stopper built in, so it can't over crush the gasket. If you see, it's got a little bit of a I don't know, like almost like a washer shape right there that sticks down a little. It makes it a little thicker in that area, so you can still see the gasket, but that stops it from going any further. So the 8 foot-pounds, maybe a little arbitrary. They probably say that so you don't snap something off or crush the aluminum, but I like that. That gives it a stopping point. So everything else is in. All these little brackets, reconnected the hoses here and also to the plenum, and put the bolts back in that I'd removed for the other brackets. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the spark plugs and see what shape they're in. In this case, it's a 16mm socket, pretty basic. That one's sticking in there pretty good. If I don't snap that off, that would be bad. Whew. You can see I'm going back and forth on these threads just a little bit to help it try to break loose. Yeah, that one's hanging on pretty good. So I'll just get one of these out for now, and if I don't have the socket with the little boot inside, a little rubber boot, but I do have an extended needle nose type of pliers, so I can get a hold of it. And there you can see the evidence of oil leaking down around that plug. That's a lot of oil. And that may be part of the problem with why the spark plug was acting up. I don't know which cylinder was bad, but definitely a good idea to replace these. It looks like the spark plugs are actually working pretty well, but you can see it's getting really tall, so the center electrode is worn down quite a bit, and they're probably overdue for being changed. I know we never changed them, and so I don't know if they were ever changed before, but it's worth a lot to put new ones in. So let me get the rest of those out of the way, and then I'll get them swapped out. Alright, so I have all the plugs out. I just want to show you this new plug. The gap is preset, and in this case it's about between 40 and it's probably about 45, which is where that's a normal kind of range. And that one that I had trouble getting out, this one's gapping at about 65. So that could be what was the problem with those with the check engine light. So now all I'm going to do is take these new plugs and set them down in place. And I can't tell you a torque on these. I just know that I'm not going to I'm not going to crush them. You don't want to over tighten spark plugs, that's for sure. But these were overdue. So now at this point, I will freehand tighten these. I won't use a ratchet. Make sure they're nice and fitting nice, threading in easily. And in this case, I'll just do this one. I'm not gonna, like I said, don't go crazy on these. I'm only gonna give, that's about it. I'm not gonna go any tighter. Because a spark plug is not like a bolt. It's not something that's holding a torque and holding assembly together. All it is really doing is closing off that hole at the top of, or at the top of the piston, but basically on the inside of the cylinder head. So let me get those other ones tightened up, and then I'll go back and put the coil packs on. One nice thing about having coil packs on each spark plug and having the wiring is you can't get it wrong. You would really have to work hard to put these in the wrong spot. So I'm making sure the boots are all clean. Basically just put them back in the holes that they came from. Push them down, make sure they're seated, line up the bolt with the hole. And again, these aren't going to be a super high torque because all you're doing is hold it down. It's not like you're putting a cylinder head together or a lug nut on a wheel. That's all I'm going to do. A little bit of torque. Double check. And then make sure everything's in place. Double check all your connections and all your bolts and hardware. And then it's just a matter of getting this cover back in place. And it should be pretty self-aligning. And then putting the last two nuts on. And that's it. Hopefully you learned something from this. And this should take care of the oil leak problem. And I will say this, since I already know he was losing a bunch of oil, I'm going to get this up on level ground and double check how much oil is in it, and then fill as necessary. Other than that, that should take care of it. And good way to start off 2017. I think that's it. So once again, thanks for watching.